At my art exhibition, not one family member stepped through the entrance. Later, I glimpsed their pictures, a backyard cookout excluding me. Yet, as I dismantled my display, the gallery proprietor handed me an agreement and murmured, "Your future's about to transform." That evening, my parents rang 71 times. Before picking up, I made a choice. I wasn't anticipating a grand celebration. I didn't expect bouquets, balloons, or even a celebratory banner stuck to the wall with masking tape. All I truly desired, all I ever longed for, was their presence. It was my first significant showcase. Not some amateur display in a community hall or a temporary street fair where folks sip inexpensive wine and feign interest. This was unique. Months of preparation, years of dedication. The venue was a renovated warehouse in East Downtown Houston with lofty, pristine white walls. Overhead, industrial lamps cast ideal shadows on the textured brushstrokes I'd poured my heart into. Dylan West, Shards of Stillness. That title had lingered in my mind for over a year before I touched paint to canvas. My exhibition explored the unspoken things people withhold. Their avoidance, their skepticism, their quiet when you need their voice most. It was meant to be the night my family truly recognized me. I'd mailed invitations 6 weeks prior, followed up thrice. Phoned, texted, messaged. I even visited my parents' home 2 weekends earlier, showing them a printed brochure. My mom nodded, seeming engaged. My dad scarcely glanced up from his phone. I convinced myself they'd attend. Maybe not all, maybe not punctually, but they'd come. They had to. By 6:45, the space began to fill. Jesse and Mark, my cousins from the north side, arrived first. They embraced me, sensing the burden I carried. Former classmates I hadn't seen in years appeared too, praising the hues, narratives, and brushwork. My high school art instructor lingered near one piece for 15 minutes, then pulled me aside to say he always knew I had true talent. Guests asked questions, snapped photos. A local culture magazine journalist interviewed me beside one of my larger works. There were handshakes, smiles, even chuckles, but every few moments my gaze drifted to the entrance. Nothing. Not my mom, not my dad, not either of my brothers, not my sister, not even a maybe. By 7:30, I slipped out to the alley behind the gallery to catch my breath. My phone vibrated. For a moment I thought perhaps a message, perhaps they're delayed in traffic. But no, it was a social media tag. I opened Instagram. My sister's story appeared first. Grills smoke. My dad turning burgers in their backyard. Country music playing faintly. A table arranged with red plastic cups and potato salad. My younger brother tossing a football to his son. Laughter, warm light. A full-fledged family barbecue. No one had mentioned it to me, not once. There I stood, alone in a gritty alley behind the greatest night of my life, watching my family host a gathering I wasn't invited to. I didn't weep. I didn't get furious. I just returned inside and endured the rest of the evening. I smiled, I answered queries, I shook hands with buyers, a few smaller pieces sold before the night ended. I remained professional, numb yet composed. At 9:12, the final guest departed. I began removing some unsold works, wrapping their edges in soft fabric. That's when Maya, the gallery owner, approached quietly. She handed me a plain manila envelope and said 6 words I hadn't expected from anyone that night. "Your future's about to transform, Dylan." She didn't elaborate, just walked away. I didn't open the envelope immediately. I just stared at it, seated on a crate near the entrance, surrounded by empty wine glasses and the lingering scent of paint and perfume. When I finally reached home around 10:30, I tossed my keys on the counter and plugged in my phone. That's when I noticed. 71 missed calls, mostly from my parents, a few from my siblings. My voicemail icon glowed like it was ablaze. The latest message was just 10 minutes old. I didn't listen to any. Instead, I opened the envelope Maya gave me. What was inside would alter everything. The envelope felt weightier than it should have. Not physically, just in that way certain moments carry significance. I opened it slowly like I was unsealing something irrevocable. Inside was a neatly stapled contract. 8 pages. Year-round gallery representation. My own dedicated space. Scheduled solo exhibitions. Promotion, media, access to collectors. A financial outline that made my throat tighten. Then I saw the handwritten note at the bottom of the final page. Just a few words in Maya's sharp, precise handwriting. "You're not just talented, Dylan. You're the real deal. Let's prove it." I read the entire thing twice before signing. I didn't waver. I didn't ponder if it was too soon or if I was prepared. I just signed. And the moment I did, I felt something within me seal, like a silent door had finally closed. I set the papers aside, leaned back on the edge of the mattress in my small apartment, and finally glanced at my phone. 71 missed calls, almost all from family. I didn't touch the voicemail. I didn't need to hear what I already understood. I flipped the phone over and let it buzz into silence. I didn't sleep that night. Around midnight, I walked the 2 blocks to my studio and let myself in. The space still smelled of turpentine and primer. I grabbed a fresh canvas, didn't sketch, didn't plan, just began slinging paint. It wasn't a piece for anyone, not for a gallery, not for sale, just a release. Raw chaos. By dawn, I had something raw, swift, intense, and I left it as it was, hung it backward against the wall and switched off the lights. By noon, my decision was firm. I wasn't justifying myself to anyone. That afternoon, I posted a thank you on Instagram. One photo from the exhibition, me standing beside the silent chamber, the piece that took me the longest to complete. The caption listed names, people who attended, people who believed in me. I tagged them all. My cousins, my barber, my art teacher, even a high school classmate who drove from 2 towns over. I thanked them individually. I didn't mention my family at all. 2 hours later, I got a message from my cousin Jessie. She said my mom had called her asking odd questions, trying to discern who was there, what the contract meant, whether I'd sold anything. Then she added, "Your mom was crying on the phone. I think they finally realized they messed up." I stared at that message for a long time. That night, my dad left another voicemail. I didn't listen, but I read the transcript. He said they didn't think it was a big deal, that they'd already committed to hosting the barbecue, that they didn't realize it would matter so much to me. The line that stood out was, "If we had known you were serious about this, we would have made time." That was it, right there. As if the years I spent painting in that uninsulated garage didn't count. As if the nights I worked until my wrists ached weren't serious. As if my entire life pursuing this was just a pastime until someone else deemed it real. So I didn't reply, not to him, not to my sister when she tried to guilt me later that week, not to the family group chat where someone finally sent a half-hearted "Congrats, Dylan." I said nothing, because for the first time I didn't need their validation. Others already saw me. A week later, the gallery announced it officially. My name front and center, photos of the exhibition, Maya standing beside me. The caption read, "Welcoming Dylan West as our newest represented artist. His work is going global." That's when the messages flooded in. Old high school friends, people I hadn't heard from in years, artists seeking collaboration. A gallery in Austin invited me to a group show. Then an email arrived from a contemporary art museum in New York. And my family, they switched tactics. My sister sent a message about her friend needing help with a design brand launch. My younger brother asked if I could fund his music project. My parents mentioned their mortgage being tight this month. Suddenly, they all recalled my number. But I recalled something too. They hadn't just missed one night. They'd missed the entire journey. It didn't take long for their messages to shift. First came the subtle, indirect ones. "Hey, proud of you," from my older brother, as if we'd ever discussed my art without him joking I should get a real job. Then my sister sent an Instagram post of someone wanting custom artwork, asking if I had time. No context, no acknowledgement of the night they skipped, just a casual question like nothing happened. Then the real messages began. My mom sent a lengthy text about how proud she was and how she always knew I'd succeed. She said they thought it was a minor local event, not serious, and they'd already promised friends they'd host the barbecue. She used the word misunderstanding twice. She asked if I'd come for dinner soon so they could hear all about it. My dad called again 2 days later, leaving a message saying maybe I could help with something. His colleague's son wanted to enter the art world and thought I'd be a good contact. That same day, my younger brother sent a voice memo. He needed a small loan for a music video, just a few $100 for a venue and gear rental. He said it would mean a lot coming from family. I didn't respond to any of them. I was done explaining to people who never cheered when I had nothing. I wasn't giving anyone the chance to act like they'd been there all along. Instead, I sent some of my earnings from the first sales to Jesse and Mark, my cousins who arrived early and stayed late at the opening. I mailed a handwritten thank you note to Mr. Lewis, my old art teacher, with a small framed print of the silent chamber. I posted behind-the-scenes shots from my studio, tagging friends who helped stretch canvases and prep walls. One commented, "You've always had it. They just didn't look hard enough." And still, the calls kept coming. 71 missed calls that first night. Then more each week, texts asking why I was distant, messages suggesting I was letting success go to my head. My sister sent a guilt trip saying, we love you. You're just being dramatic. Dramatic. That word lodged in my throat like a thorn, because that's what they always said. Whenever I spoke up, whenever I wanted their support, attention, or space, they'd roll their eyes and call me too sensitive. Too intense, too much. Now suddenly I wasn't enough. Or rather, I was too much in the wrong way, too successful, too unavailable, too selective about where my time and money went. But the truth was, my time wasn't free anymore. People were flying me out for meetings. Galleries booked me months in advance. I was asked to speak on panels, write about my process, explain how silence and rejection shaped my work. And I told the truth. Always. Not the version that made me seem noble, but the one that made people lean in. I told them about watching the door at my first real exhibition, about checking my phone and seeing my family laughing around a grill while my future unfolded without them. That silence, their absence, became part of my work. It lived in the brushstrokes, it bled through the textures, and still they didn't understand. My dad left another voicemail that week. This time he didn't ask for anything. He just said, we've all made mistakes. Don't forget who your family is. But that was the thing. I hadn't forgotten. I just accepted it. I thought eventually they'd revert to their old pattern, ignoring me until there was something to mock. That was the cycle for years. Whenever something good happened, they'd vanish. Whenever I struggled, they'd offer half-hearted advice, always tinged with condescension. I never expected them to push harder after I stopped responding. But I was wrong. A little over 2 months after signing with the gallery, my work gained momentum. Fast, collectors from out of state sent offers. A woman from Dallas bought 4 pieces outright and commissioned 2 more. I had a virtual meeting with a curator from London. Berlin invited me to show in the spring. Maya was arranging press with an international art magazine. It was as if years of rejection had been erased and replaced with acceleration. I was in the studio finishing a layered oil piece when someone knocked on the door. Not the buzzer, an actual knock. I assumed it was Maya or someone from the gallery, but it was my mom. She stood there holding a casserole dish, wearing the same expression she always had when she wanted something, half gentle, half calculated. I hadn't seen her since before the Houston show. I opened the door and without asking, she stepped inside and placed the dish on my work table, inches from a wet canvas. She began talking as if we were mid-conversation, said she'd been meaning to visit, regretted missing the gallery night, that she hadn't realized its importance. Then, after a brief pause, she said they had something to share. Not an apology, not a question, just a shift. Apparently, they were planning to open a boutique store, West & Company. A family-run space featuring handmade goods, local creators, sustainable brands. She said it could be a legacy business. That I'd be the core of it. My artwork would attract customers. They'd build the store around my identity. Paintings, merchandise, prints. Said my success could finally lift everyone. Then came the request. They wanted an investment, seed funding, just a small portion. 10, maybe 15,000. My mom said it would mean a lot if I could contribute. Not just financially, but by lending credibility with my name. I didn't move. I didn't sit. I didn't ask a single question. She stood there waiting for a response I wouldn't give. Eventually, she picked up the dish and said she hoped I'd the next day. My older brother emailed a PDF proposal. Full business plan. Slides, projections, logo concepts. Polished design. They'd clearly invested time in it. There was even a mocked-up flyer with my name in the center featuring the works of Dylan West. I forwarded it to Maya. 10 minutes later, she called. All she said was, "Do you want to handle this, or should I?" I told her to proceed. 2 days later, a cease and desist was sent. Any attempt to use my name, likeness, or creative property without a written licensing agreement would trigger legal action. I thought that would deter them. Instead, they doubled down. My sister sent a furious voice memo, called me cruel, said I'd finally made it and was acting like they never mattered. She said if I didn't want to be part of the family, they'd move forward without me. She accused me of thinking I was better than them. That success had warped me. Then came my dad. Left a voicemail that started calm and ended with something I never expected to hear. He said, "You're not the only talented one in this family. Don't forget, you're just lucky. Someone else could have had your shot if they'd been given the same chances." That part lingered. Given. As if all those nights on my studio floor, all those years without heat, selling paintings at flea markets, getting rejected by dozens of galleries were just luck. Then the final blow came. A group text from my mom to me, my brothers, and my sister. It said, "If Dylan wants to live like a stranger, let's treat him like one." That was it. No more calls, no more requests. No more guilt-laced manipulation, just complete, cold silence. But it wasn't painful anymore. I kept waiting for regret to creep in, for loneliness, for the pull of family to gnaw at me again. It never came. All I felt was relief, peace in a way I'd never known, not because they were gone, but because I was finally free. The silence wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic, it just settled. A week passed, then two. No calls, no texts, no forwarded emails pretending to check in. They vanished as if they'd never been part of my story. I half expected to feel a hollow ache from their absence, but it never came. I was too busy breathing freely. My world kept moving forward, fast. Berlin sent the final itinerary. My piece was opening their winter exhibit, and they'd booked my flight, hotel, even arranged a translator. New York confirmed the two-artist show. I was headlining alongside a sculptor from Seoul whose work I'd admired for years. A feature in modern art review hit newsstands, calling me the artist who paints silence so loud it resonates. The irony wasn't lost on me. I started getting serious offers, partnerships, licensing deals, high-profile commissions. Maya and I expanded the gallery's online presence, shipping to Singapore, Amsterdam, Dubai. I had to hire help to manage inventory. My life was unrecognizable from 6 months earlier, and the clearer it became that my family had held me back, the more I thought about those who hadn't. Jesse and Mark, the two who showed up without being asked, who stayed through my entire gallery night, bought a piece despite their tight budget, and cheered louder than anyone. The ones who didn't flinch when I had nothing to offer. The ones who believed before it was convenient, so I called them. I didn't reveal my plan, just asked if they were free to fly to New York for my upcoming show. They agreed before I finished asking. I booked their flights, covered their hotel, sent the full itinerary. When they landed, I picked them up myself and took them to dinner in Brooklyn. At the restaurant, I handed them each a simple envelope. Inside was paperwork granting them small but permanent shares in a print series I was launching with Maya. Exclusive, limited editions for collectors. Their names were listed as co-owners of the venture. A portion of everything I earned from it would go to them for life. Mark stared at the papers, speechless. Jessie teared up. She asked why. I told her the truth because when I was broke, painting in a garage that smelled of mildew, you didn't laugh. You asked how you could help. That means more than any bloodline. We toasted to those who stayed. Meanwhile, the rest of the family fell into a strange, passive silence. Not true distance, just the pretense of it. I saw my sister's vague Instagram captions. The ones that said funny how people change and some folks forget their roots. I got a notification one night that my mom had refollowed me, but she never liked a single post. Just watched, silently. Then came the email from my dad, no greeting, no subject line, just a few short lines. You made your point. You got what you wanted. But you should be ashamed of abandoning the people who raised you. I didn't reply, I didn't even finish reading it. Because what he didn't grasp, what none of them grasped, was that I never wanted to make a point. I wasn't chasing cold revenge. I wasn't cutting ties to teach a lesson. All I ever wanted was for them to care. Genuinely, not when it was convenient, not when they saw money to be made, not when others suddenly cared too, but they didn't, not when it mattered. So I gave my time, energy, and success to those who did. I funded a grant at my old high school for emerging artists, named it after Mr. Lewis. I sent a surprise payment to a friend who'd once covered my studio rent when I was behind. I let 2 local kids use my space for a photo shoot and ended up mentoring them for free. Every dollar I spent helping someone who believed in me was another brick between me and those who didn't. And every show I booked, every collector who added me to their private vault, every flight to another city where my art was displayed, I felt more untethered from them. Not in bitterness, in freedom. Because what they never realized was that they didn't make me. Their absence did. The New York show didn't feel like a show, it felt like a turning point. From the moment the doors opened, the air shifted. Collectors I'd only read about shook my hand. 2 critics from major publications requested interviews. Maya kept whispering updates throughout the night. Who bought what, who reserved what, who asked for private appointments. By the end of the second hour, over half my displayed pieces had red dots beside them. A collector from Singapore asked if I took private commissions. I said I might, depending on the subject. But even with all that happening, press, sales, recognition, something in the room felt off, like a corner of the evening was folding inward. A tension beneath the buzz. I felt it before I saw him. I was standing near the central installation, mid-conversation with a Berlin gallery owner when I caught movement in my peripheral. A figure. Tall. lingering by the far wall, half hidden near the catering table, just beyond the spotlight. My stomach churned before my mind caught up. It was my father. I hadn't seen him since before the Houston show. He looked older, perhaps thinner, but his posture was the same, shoulders back, face unreadable. He wasn't mingling, wasn't drinking, just observing, watching me, the room, my name in bold black letters above the centerpiece wall. He stayed for maybe 60 seconds, maybe less. Then he turned and slipped out the side door, didn't speak, didn't meet my eyes, didn't leave a word. And for the second time, I watched him walk away from something that should have mattered. I didn't follow, I didn't tell Maya, I didn't even write about it in my journal that night. But I didn't forget it. The next morning, as we finalized details and reviewed sales figures, Maya handed me an envelope. A plain one. No gallery branding, no address, just Dylan written in firm, neat handwriting. I thought for a moment it was from my dad, but it wasn't. Inside was an old photo, me around 14 in our backyard holding my first finished painting. I remembered that day like a wound, my mom in the background looking elsewhere. My dad mid-call, my siblings absent from the frame. It looked like a moment of triumph if you didn't know what was missing. There was no note, just the photo, no explanation, no apology, but it wasn't random. That was the thing. Because it wasn't just a reminder, it was a warning. My sister had sent it. I knew it instinctively. She was always subtle with her messages, but this was different. She knew exactly what that picture would do. It wasn't nostalgia. It was a reminder that they still recalled what they chose to ignore. And maybe, deep down, she knew I was building something they couldn't ignore forever. Back in my hotel that night, I unpacked the silent chamber. I'd bought it back from the Paris collector weeks ago without telling anyone. I hung it across from the bed and sat on the floor, staring at it, waiting for it to speak. That piece wasn't just my breakthrough. It was my origin. And now I knew what had to come next. One final show, not in Houston, not in New York, not Berlin or Paris or anywhere they could hide behind distance or timing. It would be different, something intimate, select invitations. A location they wouldn't anticipate, just the people who mattered, and maybe one or two who didn't know they did, the centerpiece. A painting no one had seen, not even Maya. It had lived beneath layers for years, hidden under primer. Beneath canvases I never sold. It wasn't abstract. It wasn't metaphor. It was clear, direct, personal, a story frozen in color. I'd worked on it slowly, piece by piece, like stitching a wound I knew I'd eventually reopen. I hadn't named it yet, but I would. And when that painting was unveiled, it would say everything I never had the chance to, about what was done, what was denied, what was finally mine. The story isn't over, not yet. Because the night I opened that show, someone else walked through the door. And this time they didn't come alone. The venue was unlike the others. No wine, no velvet ropes, no press wall. Just a quiet, converted loft in a small town outside Santa Fe. The guest list was hand-picked. No sponsors, no media, just those who mattered along the way. My high school art teacher, Jesse and Mark, Maya, a few artists I'd mentored, and a few collectors who understood this wasn't about money. The show was called Unspoken. One night only, one painting. The gallery lights were dimmed. A single spotlight framed the canvas in the center, covered by a black cloth. No title on the wall, no description, just stillness. I waited until everyone was inside, then stepped forward and pulled the cloth off. Gasps, then silence. The painting was unmistakable, my family's backyard, the night of the barbecue, not imagined, precise. Down to the folding chairs, the grill, the solo cups. My mother holding a plate mid-laugh. My father leaning against the porch railing, beer in hand. My siblings around a table. Everyone smiling. Everyone there except me. But in the painting, a shadow stood in the corner. Faint. Watching through the slats of the wooden fence, that shadow was me. And beside me, just barely visible, was a second figure. A boy, small, unclear, not fully formed. No one asked about it. But everyone saw it. I said nothing. Just let the room absorb it. As the evening wound down, guests left quietly, some with tears, others with a simple nod. Jesse and Mark stayed to help close up. Maya stood beside me, arms folded, silent. She didn't need to speak. Right before I turned off the lights, I glanced at the guest book by the door. Someone had signed it last. In tight, neat handwriting, it read, "For the boy who saw everything. I'm sorry I didn't. There was no name, but I knew." And just before I locked the door, I looked out the window. A man was walking away down the street. Alone, slowly. And beside him, a boy followed. Same height, same stride. Neither one looked back. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Do you agree with what happened, or do you see it differently? Let us know your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our upcoming stories. See you in the next one.